long time ago, my grandfather, Harry John Score, fired up my imagination and instilled in me a deep love for history with countless stories of his past. Now, I am a grandfather with stories of my own to share with my granddaughter, Hannah. Oh, and now, with the help of the World Wide Web, I can share them with you. Simple little tales of life from years and years ago. Just to be clear, they didn't all wear bib overalls or straw hats or baler twine to hold up their pants. They didn't all chew on stalks of hay, nor did they plod through the fields barefoot. That indomitable generation of farmers in the old neighborhood that my grandfather belonged to was far more civilized, far more worldly, and far more educated than any hayseed buffoon one might imagine in that annoying nursery rhyme, Old MacDonald Had a Farm. E-I, oh good grief. After all, every single one of them that were still around in the 50s and 60s had lived through 2 world wars, the Spanish influenza pandemic, the Great Depression, blizzards, heat waves, droughts, milk strikes, only 3 networks of black and white TV, and countless other hardships too many to go on about here. And they were still getting up every morning before dawn to milk the cows. Nope, they don't make them like that anymore. Well, for the sake of full disclosure, my grandfather did wear bib overalls, but never wore them off the farm, and they were always clean. He wore straw hats too, but only the most stylish, and always tilted slightly forward and to one side. He always told me any man who didn't wear his hat that way had no class. The straw hats were mostly for summertime field work, raking hay, baling hay, or working in his extensive multiple vegetable gardens. But most often he was more comfortable wearing his signature railroad-style engineer's cap, tilted slightly forward and to one side. Though his dream in life was to own his own farm, there was a time early on in order to pay the bills he had to find work off his father's farm. In the years leading up to and through World War I, he did a number of things outside of agriculture. The Catskill Aqueduct, one of the greatest engineering projects of modern times, was constructed from 1907 through 1924. In the years just prior to World War I, the construction phase went through East Coldenham, less than a mile from where my grandfather lived. In his 20s, and a hard worker, he was a good fit with the construction company working that section of the project. He worked as a carpenter, building tool sheds along the ditch. He told me stories about mules trained to raise and lower elevators and the shafts to the tunnels, and huge steam cranes falling over within a few feet of him. Around 1917, as the United States began cranking up for war, Newberg went to work building ships. He got a job working there. I don't remember him saying what exactly he did there. I only remember him saying how he would work on scaffolding hanging from the side of the ships and how dangerous it was as workers would occasionally slip and fall to their deaths. Now, during World War I, Harry was draft age, but according to him, the Army turned him down, said he was 1 inch too short. A claim I always thought was said in jest, but it turns out, at the time, the minimum height requirement was initially 5 feet 3 inches. He was 5'2". It didn't matter anyway. By the summer of 1918, he caught the influenza and almost died. The after effects of it bothered him the rest of his life. By the early 1920s, he recovered, married my grandmother, and left town. He went to work on an estate down in Westchester County and became a jack of all trades. There he was a carpenter, groundskeeper, chauffeur, beer brewer, and anything else he could figure out to make himself useful. Ironically, he was just down the road from Rosedale Nurseries, the company I became a jack of all trades 2 generations later. By 1930, he was back up in Orange County renting a farm from an uncle in St. Andrews. In 1941, he moved over towards Montgomery and rented the Scott Farm on East Searsville Road. In 1946, at the age of 54, he finally achieved his lifelong dream to own his own farm when the Mills farm next door came up for sale. 4 years later, I came along, and the rest, as they say, is history. And the rest is for another time to tell. Well, there's just one more thing, sort of. Of all the things he did in his life, and he was good at all of them, the greatest of all to me was storyteller. All these little tales he told of years and years ago added up to one great story of a great life. His life. Just like the rest of those great men of that generation in that neighborhood, and neighborhoods like it all over creation. History never knew him, and therefore may never remember him. But he was as grand a hero as any could be to me, and I will remember them all. And I'll always wear my hat tilted slightly forward and to one side. And oh yes, that was all years and years ago.